Welcome to the weekly meeting of the Rotary Club of Jonesboro. Appreciate everyone taking time to be on here. I hope everyone's having a great week. And let's see, call this to order. My bell. And inspirational moment. Pure water is the world's first and foremost medicine. Slovakian proverb. Now to our program.
Our speaker today is fellow Rotarian Phil Shupe from the North Little Rock Club. Phil is qualified to speak on today's topic, the Brazilian Water Filter Project, a project on which the Rotary Club of Jonesboro is partnered with his. He has a bachelor's degree in engineering and a master's in business administration. For 30 years, Phil has been involved in process design and selling water and wastewater equipment at Shupe and Associates, and worked on several hundred water projects in places such as Nepal, Guatemala, Haiti, and Brazil. The Rotary Club of North Little Rock has recognized Phil's efforts on the Brazil water filter project by naming him Rotarian of the Year. Please join me in a cyber welcome for today's guest, Phil Shupe.
And this is a subject that's near and dear to my heart. And we've been fortunate to work on this project for some time. And we appreciate Jonesboro, your club, being a part with us, with several other clubs. And we started this about 10 years ago. I was on a church mission project and down in this slum in Brazil, in South Brazil, and we saw the dirty ditches, the black ditches, and the water lines running through it. And I said, we got to do something about this. And as an engineer, my wheels started turning. So I met a guy over the internet who was from Florence, Alabama, and he was Rotarian there. And he had been working in the project as well. And so we got to talk, and he said, I think Rotary may help fund this project of putting water filters in the slum. And so the more we talked, and he did get the Florence, Alabama club to fund the first project. And I said, these guys are kind of like me. I probably ought to be a Rotarian. And so I did. And so we met with the PALCHOCA club in Brazil. You'll see some pictures later. And they have been involved. The Stuttgart club's been involved. And there's a Christian humanitarian organization called the CADI, C-A-D-I, in Frei, Damião. Took me several years to learn how to say that. So we started the project. Our situation is contaminated water causes close to 500,000 deaths every year. World Vision has a statement that really struck me. Says more than 5,000 children under the age of 5 die each day from disease spread by unsafe water. And what they go on to say is the lack of sanitation and water to wash their hands afterwards caused another 5,000 deaths. After age 5, children tend to start developing immunity so they don't die as often from diarrhea and such. And so you can see 2 billion people use contaminated drinking water. And as the world continues to grow, water will become an increasingly important piece. The filters we installed are these. We had some filters we used in Haiti, and Brazil didn't want to import them. So we purchased these in Brazil. They're kind of like a glorified Brita filter. They have basically, if you see my pointer, this upper chamber that holds about 2 gallons, the lower chamber a little bit more, 2.5 gallons. It's got some basically little toilet bowl floats underneath it, so the bottom chamber does not overflow. And then you got a valve and you set it on the kitchen counter and the people can get drinking water out of it. It's got what they call candles inside, which are ceramic filters, 1 micron, and they have activated carbon in it and nano silver in for disinfection. So the neighborhood started, it's a squatter village, and it started out with people building houses out of what they could find and collecting garbage to sell pop cans and plastics and such, whatever they could do to just scrape by. And I apologize, my pictures are old. We were supposed to go in the spring, this spring of 20, and we were about 2 weeks from going, and the Brazilian government said, if you come from outside the nation, you got to quarantine for a week, and we were going for a 9-day trip. And so we postponed. Hopefully we'll go maybe next fall. I was hoping to go in the spring, but it's probably not going to happen. They still use, some of them still use horses. Some of the people have cars now. You can't see it very clearly, but there is a young boy in the back, and his dad said, son, why don't you sort garbage for me today instead of going to school? And the Brazilian government does provide schooling for children all the way to the 4th grade, need it or not. And we are certainly blessed here in America. So the problem is the black ditches, because they don't have sewer. And here's a lady sitting on her front porch. So they do have water in the houses. You can see this little forked line going in. It's a 1/2-inch black poly line. And so our situation is we have 9,000 people living on 80 acres. And so if Norm had water at his house, I'd want water, and so would Gary and everybody else. So we would split the line and run a 1/2-inch poly line to everybody else's house. And the problem is you occasionally have pressure. And when you don't have pressure and the water lines run through the black ditches, if Norm opens his valve and you don't have pressure, it creates a vacuum on the line. It can create a vacuum on the line, and then it can suck in black water into the water system. So this is a sink in one of the faucet coming into someone's house there. This is some of the water that we saw prior to installation of a filter. Doesn't look very appetizing. Here's the water line running through the black ditch. It's the way the whole neighborhood is put together, with the water lines running through the ditches. And in this particular situation, you can see a 4-inch white PVC pipe coming out of a house. That's where their toilet is connected, and it goes right into the ditch. So you can see why I was concerned when I saw this. Just here's a connection, and hopefully a tight connection, because if it's a loose connection, it could suck in water. A lot of cute kids there. The national shoe wear is flip-flops there. And this little girl in the forefront of the picture, her ball rolled over into the ditch, and being a typical kid, she went over and got it. And it just bothered me. A lot of newborns there. They're really sensitive to poor quality water. You see one of the filters sitting on the kitchen counter there. And the neighborhood, as the people find jobs and work, the neighborhood is getting better. This was a newborn, probably a week old when we were there. This is my friend David Birch from Florence, Alabama, and he's the one that got us started on this project. You notice the houses are well ventilated. This lady has a set of slats over her windows. A lot of the windows are just open. This lady has several children, and this was on a second trip we went, and she said, thank you, thank you, thank you. My kids have always been sick before we got the filters. See a lot of interesting people. This lady is obviously of Indian descent, coming out of the jungle and trying to build a new life for herself in this village. A lot of cute kids there. You can't really see it very clearly, but this fellow in the background is Barry Sims. He's a judge in Little Rock and went to our church and wanted to go and went with us and was quite helpful. So we were trying to go, we tried to do a global grant and spent a couple, 2 or 3 years fooling with trying to get that funded. Didn't ever work. And so we said, we're just going to go district grants and get some other clubs and do it. So we've been there twice. We're going the third time, as we discussed. We've already got almost 700 filters in, and we need another 350. And with your support and North Little Rock support on this project, we will have, when they're all installed, just over 1,000 filters in this slum, and that will finish the project. So we had district grant, the PALCHOCA Club, which is about 2 miles away, the Florianopolis Brazil group district was committed, Florence, Alabama, Stuttgart, and Jonesboro. This is this fellow on the left, Roberto, was president of the club. His wife, Sonia, this is the PALCHOCA Club in Brazil. His wife, Sonia, they both came, she became a district governor for her district. They both came out and worked several days with us. My friend, Robert Birch, David Birch, myself, excuse me, let me go back. A couple other fellows from my church. This is a thank you from the PALCHOCA Club from Sonia. And she does speak English. Portuguese is really tough. For me, it was a privilege to be part of this endeavor and have a chance to make a little bit of difference as you guys, as Rotarians, understand. A lot of cute kids down there that need clean water. Just regular folks trying to stay healthy and make a life for themselves. Some moms that were, this is at the Kaji, and they were coming to get filters. Because we couldn't go this spring, we had plane tickets all bought, and fortunately we got refunds. But we were, the Kaji, we asked the Kaji to install some of the filters, and they have been doing so. It's a lot of sad looking houses there. And we had some local volunteers helping. This house had dirt floor and carpet on the floor, and it was raining that day, and it didn't rain as much on the inside of the house as it did on the outside, but it was tough. So this is another picture. This is a previous president of the Rotary Club. This is, as you might imagine, the district governor. This is Sonia and her husband, Roberto, and another Brazilian volunteer. We had to use local volunteers because of the language barrier, because Portuguese is really tough. And so that worked out well. These are the 300 filters that are there that we shipped in this spring. So they've been starting to install those. And this was a sticker that we put on the side of the filters, talked about the Rotary Clubs of Arkansas, Alabama, the Kaji, and Paldasa. And then there's a scripture verse on the bottom. So you have questions?
Hey, Phil, you said that your project, if I understood, was about 1,000 of the filters. Will that
Yes.
cover everybody within that 80-acre area? Or
Yes, that's what we expect. When we go in the fall, we think that will pretty well cover the neighborhood.
What is the government doing about this project in Brazil? What does the Brazilian government do? The city government?
The city government provides water, and I have equipment in your Jonesboro water system. A lot of your aerators we provided over the years. In the city of Florianopolis and Frei, Damião, they have to ration water. So maybe they have water on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and they all have tanks on the top of their house to to hold the water and provide pressure. But in most of these cases, they don't use enough chlorine. If they don't use chlorine, or they don't use enough chlorine, so the water is not really safe. So all the wealthy people have filter systems in their houses, and the slums is obviously what we're trying to help in that regard. So, but the government does not provide funding. When I first went there, they had about 500, they had $5 million in the bank to provide water and sewer for this neighborhood. And I said, great. Why don't you do it? Well, the bankers like having the money in the bank, and the politicians said, well, if I spend this money over somewhere else, I'll get more votes. And it never happened. And the corruption there just ruins a society and really hurts. So the government doesn't really do hardly anything other than provide the water.
Hey, Phil, there's some questions in the chat. How long do the filters last? And if you got to replace them, how they go about getting replacements? That sort of thing.
Excellent question. So filters normally last 6 months to a year, depending on how much water they consume and how dirty the water is. They can purchase new filters at the grocery store. They're commonplace there. They're a couple bucks a piece. When we provide a filter, we provide not only the 2 candles or filters that are in there, but we provide another set. So each party gets 4 filters. And then sometimes, depends on funds available, the Kaji will provide additional filters for people that are in dire straits. Otherwise, if they can afford it, they will buy them at the grocery store.
So the filters are, I guess, strictly for drinking and cooking water. Do they have anything for like bathing water or anything like that?
Nope. They have water that they use the same water, but it's just regular, just as it comes out of the pipe.
And then it's one of the questions in the chat: can average people in the target area really afford these after the 4 initial filters run out? Basically, afford another filter, a couple dollars. Is a couple dollars too much for that area, or what's the?
Well, that's Norman, excellent question. I think most of the people are making $1.75 a day, and
Oh,
that's pretty much subsistence. Just trying to put food on the table. Some of them have, because there was a lot of manpower in the slum. Some of the industrialists built factories around the edge to give these people jobs because there was a lot of labor. And so as the people have been getting jobs and progressing economically, it's getting better.
how does the filter, long does it take? If the water comes in to the household, it goes into the filter. Does it just go straight through, or does it have to build up to absorb some of the, I'm assuming there are some chemicals in there. And do they have to wait for a while before using it?
No, it's a pretty simple system, Norm. Basically, it is not connected physically to the water system. You would take a dish pan or something or a pitcher and fill it with water and then fill up the upper chamber. That provides a little bit of pressure to push the water through the filter and down to the lower chamber. So in reality, for cooking and taking care of the baby, probably and drinking water, you probably need about 50 a day. So for a typical household, so it's not like we're trying to get 40 or 50 gallons through there.
Yeah, I have one. Phil, I remember in Jonesboro in the 50s, there were still outhouses in Jonesboro. There were outhouses in the hills in northern Arkansas. A lot of them.
Sure.
I don't even see evidence that in Brazil that they've even gotten to the point where they have outhouses. What's the story with sewage and so
Well,
forth?
when the first time I was there, they had what they referred to as they'd have a toilet in the house somewhere, maybe in a side room, and then I saw some places where they had what they referred to as a septic tank. And it was basically a 55-gallon barrel without a bottom in it. And so the waste would go into the top of the barrel. The liquids would drain out the bottom, and then they would get that pumped out, once a year or twice a year to get solids out of it. But what that also did, because the water table is about 5 or 6 feet, polluted all the house wells that were there. So you couldn't drill a house well and have any good water quality. So it was a sad situation, and all these black ditches go to a little creek, and then the creek goes to the ocean. When we were in Nepal, in Kathmandu, about 3.5 million people, no wastewater treatment plants, but a really black river and a really ugly river. And that's the way a good portion of the world works. And it's sad.
With,
Bill, what is your travel itinerary like when you go to this village?
Usually
you-
we would, good question, Brian. We would normally go like on a Friday morning early, try to catch an early flight. We'd get there about Saturday, 2:00, Saturday afternoon, about 2:00. And then we would start the next Saturday on the return trip. We would work during the week and return the next Saturday and get home Sunday morning sometime, Sunday noon, something like that.
Where do you fly into and how do you get to the village?
Usually the village is, and I apologize, I think I skipped a slide. Let me go back and I'll show you where this is. The village is close to the town of Florianopolis. It was about 700,000 people in Florianopolis. It's a suburb outside. It's close to the University of South Brazil. And one of the, because the Kaji had a nursing station, I went to the University of South Brazil and asked them, I said, look, we got this sewer system that needs to be designed. Why don't you make that, they have an engineering school, why don't you make that as a engineering project and let your professors oversee it and let your students design it, and that would be good for everybody. And, oh, by the way, they got this nursing area. Why don't you let your nurses go over there and render some health care? And I was talking with the leadership of the university. It was prearranged. And they basically said that they'd had some students go over and help in the past. And one of the young women got raped because it's not a pretty neighborhood. And she stayed past 5 o'clock, and which is against the rules for us. We leave at 5 o'clock straight. So they declined to assist in that regard. And as I look to the future, I mentioned working with some folks on a children's home over there. And hopefully that will progress as funds are developed. And I was called by some people in Thailand wanting to put in water at some schools. Just one more comment. I was at a third world or developing country water program and heard a guy speak, and he was getting an award for what he had done. And he had been working in China and in Nepal. And he said, why is it that all the nice hotels have good water, but all the orphanages and the schools have lousy water? And so I think he was Catholic, but he got funding somewhere to start putting in water at the orphanages. And he said of the ones that he was working on, he had 300 more to do, and he would have all of the orphanages in that country. But he went on to say that in a school situation, if you want to have meaningful change for the long term, if you can get the children used to drinking good quality water, and if you can put in a little water plant at the school and then run it 24/7, and then after school sell water for 5 gallons or some small minimal amount, but you can make that process sustainable and let mom and dad have good quality water for school, And he had about 400,000 children drinking his good quality water. And there's lots of things we can do if we set our mind to it.
I have two questions, Phil. One is, what about it doesn't look like there's much installation to these filters. They're sent down there. So when you go down and you have a group, how long does it take to set up filters? And then the second question is the internal filters. I'm not sure what they're called, but the ceramic tubes that you spoke of that cost roughly a couple of dollars. Could there be part of a project to send that down so that the, for example, if you say that they need a couple of filter changes a year, $2 isn't much for most Rotarians. Could there be part of a project to send those internal parts down?
Sure, sure. And what we've done as part of the this last project, we bought a lot of extra parts to go with it because some of them may have needed some parts. But yes, the project to send the candles down is certainly doable and will be worthwhile. Yes.
And how long does it take to install them?
Oh, generally we're talking about minutes, and most of that is talking to the people through an interpreter so they understand how to take care of the filter. When the little ceramics get dirty, you can take a soft toothbrush and get the dirt off of it and rinse it off and extend the life of the filter. So that's so it doesn't take long. We've generally had, with the DITCHI people that went with us to speak, and we've normally had about 10, shall we say, and we could do about 275 a week kind of thing in a 5-day week.
Thank you.
So I appreciate the opportunity to share with you and to work with you, and we appreciate your contribution as we complete this project.
Well, Phil, we appreciate y'all's work on this. We're glad to be able to participate. It really, I know Marty had a comment in the chat. You know, it really makes you mindful of how precious fresh water is, and you know how we can develop wide-scale coordinated plans to manage and preserve, you know, those resources wisely with an eye toward the future. So, Marty Allen is correct. Like I said, it does really make you think about how good we have it and the things that we take for granted here.
Sure.
The others don't have, and it's a basic necessity, really. So we appreciate it. Appreciate you letting us be involved. So.
Well, I feel like it's a privilege to be involved in this sort of thing for all of us.
I agree. So another good program this week, and I know next week we will have another program set up. I know it's not on the slide, but we have Miss Greater Jonesboro Outstanding Teen, Erica Parker, and she will do a presentation on Make a Wish, Make a Difference. So should be a good program. I know if you want to look forward and see what programs are booked, I think they are all in DAC-DB now on the calendar. I think the next open date we have for a program is January the 26th. So we have a few lined up now, and I know they're working on more. So, and thought for the day: thousands have lived without love, not one without water. Yates Auden.
Good words.
Very true. And I don't have anything for this rest of the day. Hopefully y'all have a great rest of the week. If you look forward to seeing you next week. If not, have a Merry Christmas. Hope everyone has a great rest of the week.
Thanks for being with us, Phil.
Thank
Take
you,
care.
Phil.
Sure. Glad to.
Thank you. Thank you, Phil. God
Thank
bless
you.
you. Work, yeah.
Thanks. We need it.
I appreciate it, Phil.
Thanks, Norm. Thanks all for your coordination. It's most helpful.